Hi, thanks for tuning in today to Front Porch Conversation here on the front porch of the Copeland Community Center at Advent Christian Village. We have some, I guess those are not birds, those are probably crickets singing for us this morning. And we don't have any more sand from the Sahara today, so it's a good day here on the porch. I'd like to introduce you now to our guest, Joan Wittman. Joan, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I want us to let everybody know all about you.
Oh, dear.
So can we do that? Why don't you start where you began? Where were you born?
Well, it was beautiful. I'm an adopted child, and I wasn't adopted until I was over a year old. And at the age of 2.5, I was at my Italian grandmother's house, and all of a sudden they called me Joanne back there. Where's Joanne? Joanne? And they said Giovanna because my family was Italian. Mm-hmm. I was in at the piano. My head was at the keyboard, and I was doing this. And my father said, well, I guess we better give her piano lessons. And that's where it all started for the music in my life. But I have an adopted brother who lives in San Diego, California. He's now 77. And yeah, it was an interesting beginning. Love from the beginning. Absolute support all through my education and my careers. It was amazing. And it's something when you are brought into a family where it's nothing but we love you and we want you. Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Portland, Maine. Portland, Maine. I'm a Maine. You can take girl out of Maine, but you can't take the Maine out of the girl. When I get excited, I get the accent back.
I was going to say, I wouldn't have, I'm not an expert on accents, but I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, I've lived in several other places,
right.
But when I get really excited, they'll go, where are you from? So.
Well, a lot of people here recognize Maine accents very well.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of Mainers here,
yes.
Yeah.
Do you, and where did you go to school?
I went to school there in Portland, of course, and then I went to Syracuse University, and I went up to be in the nursing school, and my voice teacher, I'd only had 1 year of lessons, and he said, while you're there, why don't you audition for the music school? Well, I ended up with a 4-year scholarship, half tuition scholarship, so that changed my life. And I graduated there in 1960 and had a wonderful career. While there, Norman Traegle of the New York City Opera came up to do the opera Susanna by Carlisle Floyd, which was a contemporary opera. And the woman that was supposed to sing Susanna, her mother got sick, fell and broke her leg. Well, I was called into the main office, and they were all sitting there, and I went, oh my Lord, what have I done? And they asked me if I would sing the role of Susanna, and I was sang opposite Norman Traegle, which now when I think, holy cow, I was just a college senior. But he was so gracious, and when we bowed at the end, he said, look me up when you get to New York, and he winked his eye. Well, 9 years later, I did get to New York, and I went to audition with him. It was a wonderful experience. He was a wonderful man. He has since died. Didn't take care of himself, but it was a wonderful experience.
So from not even being able to see the keyboard, you then took piano and...
Took piano, started at probably around 6 or 7 years old. I was only 2.5 then, no. But music's been my whole life. Even before Christ and after Christ, had much more meaning after I found the Lord, yeah.
When you talked about being adopted into a home full of love, what else are some special memories of your childhood?
Well, the biggest thing was they had chosen a little boy, okay? And they came to get the little boy. Well, my father being Italian, he walked through the door, and my crib was right by the door, and I was just screaming bloody murder. He picked me up, and I stopped. My mother thinks it's because it's the first time I had seen a man, and he was bald. Well, the nun came over, and she said, oh, no, you can't, put her down. They went over, and they went home that day, and they came back and got me instead of the little boy. So that was a big deal, and that was way back in 1939. Yeah, wow. A long time. That was, so I was truly loved. There's no doubt about it.
Did you, growing up, did you perform?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I lived in a neighborhood of all boys, and Mother was very determined that I was not going to become a tomboy. I started dancing at the age of 2 and didn't finish until I was 18. We did routines from the New York, Radio City Music Hall. We did some of their routines. Truly, we did. And one year I tap danced on toe shoes. No wonder I have foot trouble now, you know. But we had wonderful, it was the 3 Art Studio of Portland, Maine, and for 16 years we did all kinds of performing. One year we did The Poet and the Peasant, which is the big thing they play at graduation. There were about 35 of us, all in white, and we marched on our toe shoes to that Poet and the Peasant at the City Hall in Portland, Maine. That was a big formation, just very, very, you know, it was really wonderful experience. I did tap, I did toe, I did ballet. I studied allocution, which is speaking in public. And I remember
pretty good at that still.
one little thing. I remember one thing that I had to recite. It was called Mother and Her Checkbook, and it lasted about 15 minutes.
Well, don't do all of that.
No.
Do you remember any of it?
So yeah. So
Could you do any of it?
Pardon?
Can you do?
Oh heavens, no! I can't remember a thing now. But it was a wonderful studio, 3 Art Studio, and. And then in college, I did a lot of good performing, and of course we had to do a senior recital. I did master's work at the University of West Virginia. Years later, that was funny. We were in Mobile, Alabama. My children were had 2 daughters. They were 13 months apart, and this guy came to sing at the opera, and I always did the understudy for the operas when they came to Mobile. I understudy Aida, which really wasn't for me. It was too heavy for me, but I did the school programs and stuff, and then the people from New York would come, and they would sing the role. And just all music has just been with me all my life. Wherever I've gone, I've taken advantage of whatever I could get to make music.
Was Mobile the first place you lived in the South?
Pardon?
Was Mobile your first move to the South?
That was an experience. If you ain't born under a magnolia bush, you don't make it. It was really funny. It was funny because I was a northerner, see, and not that I had to prove myself, but they do think a little different. And of course I'm strong and I'm outspoken sometimes. But we had a good life there. Bob was head of the classics department, and I taught music. I taught voice and piano and music history. Yep.
And tell us about your daughters.
I have 2 daughters, and my older daughter is a wonderful soprano. In fact, I'm trying to get her to come down here on an artist series. I've talked to Dick Grillo already about it, and she's just so busy. I don't know if it's ever going to come, but wouldn't I love to have her come and do a concert here?
And I know we'd love to hear her.
Yeah, she sang, they came down a year or so ago, and she sang at Dossier Manor, and then I invited Dick and his wife to come. He says, why don't you ask her to come? Well, you know, so I thought, woo, wouldn't that be nice? So we'll see what happens. My other daughter is working at Duke University. She is an assistant to one of the vice presidents, and does very, very, very fine job. And then I have one grandchild who is now 19, and his name is Samuel, named after my father. And he is a wonderful boy. Wonderful boy. He's thinking of becoming a forest ranger. So I'm very proud of all of them, yes.
Does he have musical talent or interest?
My younger daughter, actually, when I was preparing, my career, how did that happen? I can't remember. I was out in Indiana doing a thing at a big festival, and this man from Texas, he said, he would like to sponsor me in a New York City debut recital. Well, he came to Louisville, he talked to the family, and everybody agreed. And I did the recital in, was it 1980, I think? I did the New York recital. That was a big thing. Now, my teacher who got me ready for that recital, and it took 2 years. We worked hard. one day he said to me, I'd like to vocalize your kids, your girls. Well, he vocalized Lynn, and he told me to take a walk. I came back and he says, you're not going to like what I got to say. He said, but that Michelle, who is like, she's the youngest, he said, she's got more talent in her than two of you put together. But she's never pursued it, and I'm sorry she hasn't. I think she's going to regret it someday. But my older daughter sings with the Raleigh, North Carolina, a big, huge chorus. Oh, can I remember the name of it? No, of course not. It's been too long. But she sings with them, and she does solo recitals, and she's been singing with Gilbert and Sullivan. She did that for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. Hard to believe they're in their 50s now, you know, but yeah, she's doing very well and still singing, still doing it, yeah.
Sounds like you're a proud mom and grandma.
I am very happy. I am very blessed. I am very blessed.
So from Mobile, where did you go next?
Let's see, we went back up to Ohio, and then we went to Louisville, Kentucky, and one winter I came down here to visit friends.
Here to Advent
and it was
Christian Village?
It was 1988, I believe, 88 or 89. It was right in there, and they said, "Oh, you've got to come out and see the Advent Christian Village." And I said, "Oh, what is that?" And they said, "Oh, you're going to love it." So I came out, and at that time, Angie Grillo was the acting administrator of Riverview, which was the old nursing home. Mm-hmm. Day before Christmas, what administrators in their office? She was there. We started chit-chatting. I had, prior to that, lived with my mother in St. Pete for 5 years, for the last years of her life, and she wanted to move back to Maine. So I was in Maine. And she said, and I hadn't really gotten a good job up there with my mom, but it was okay, I was with my mom. Mm-hmm. And she said, Angie said, you wouldn't be interested in applying for a job here at the village, would you? And I said, yeah, maybe. I ended up being the first activity director at the Good Sam. Mm-hmm. And I helped them walk the people down the street. Floored when I went to the meeting. I said, we're going to do what? And he said, oh yes, we're going to walk them down the street. And we did. We had bands and marching things and the high school band and the motorcycle. It was unbelievable. We got them down. I think there were only 119 maybe residents. It's in that little book, that little 100-year. But it was so.
And if people don't believe your story, they can go to the archives. They have lots of information on that.
Yes. Oh yes, do. Yeah. And I stayed until it was the late summer of '95 when I left here. And then I came back in 2016 and was blown away by all the change and what had gone on. I mean, it was just never intending to move here, not at all. So
I'm glad you did.
I did.
And I know others
I think somebody else had a plan.
Well, you mentioned earlier, before faith and after coming to faith. You want to share us a little bit about that with us?
My faith? Mm-hmm. I was 37 years old, running around crazy, going on. I had a duet partner. We were doing recitals all over the place. I was singing in different operas in different cities. I was running a household. I'd go away and I'd leave a list this long on the refrigerator for the babysitters to take care of the children. Wasn't gone a long time, but I might be gone a week. And I went to the laundromat one morning with the kids, and the dog was in the car, and the kids were there, and they were ruckusing up, and I said, kids, take your books and go into the laundromat. I'll see you in a minute. And I sat in the car, and I went, I cannot do this anymore. And I went to move the car, and I hit the little thing at the front, and I, like that, you know, and all of a sudden I said, Lord, take it. I can't do this anymore. It's all yours. I'm through. And from that moment on, something happened to my life. It did.
That's okay. Yep. That's okay. That's a wonderful witness in itself.
It was so fast. Then, about a week later, the Catholic Church had a period where they had a charismatic 9-week course. And my girlfriend and I, from Oxford, Ohio, down to Covington, Kentucky, traveled there every week for the meeting. And in the 6th meeting, we had our small groups, and they would go around and they would ask you for your profession of faith and do you accept Christ? Well, we both did, and of course our husbands thought we had flown to the moon. And that's where it all began. Through that charismatic movement in the Catholic Church, we were both Catholic at the time. But from then on, I have just grown in the Lord, and He's my all in all. And when I came here, in 2016, not really intending to come here. But Craig Carter looked at me and said, I had brought a friend of mine down. She's on the dementia wing now. Her name was Alice Crosswell, and she's Alice Myers. She was a missionary here from 61 to 68, and she was the reason I was coming down. She thought she wanted to come down and move here. And as I knew she knew some of the people, the Easters and some of the people that she went to school with, including Pomeroy. I think she graduated from Pomeroy years ago. And as we were leaving a luncheon that Craig had got together, he looked at me, he says, "When are you moving here?" And I said, "Well, I hadn't really thought about it." And he looked at me and he said, "Don't wait." And that was the beginning. So I went into church the next morning, our lovely chapel, and I said, "What is going on here, Lord? Do you want me to move here?" "Well, if you want me to move here, I'll move here. If you don't, I'll stay where I am. It's that simple." And I got here, applied, got here, and have not regretted a day.
And I know that you're very busy volunteering. Would you share some of that?
Love it. I do medical transport, which is a ministry. When I found out how much they charged people to go to Lake City and to Live Oak, I went, oh. So I went into Ashley and what can I do? Can I drive these people? And then the other thing, who was the first one? Hazel Edwards had to sell her house, so I helped clear out the house. And all of a sudden, it was like she died, and all of a sudden there was another, like a caregiving. Now my mother was a caregiver. We used to go to nursing homes together when I was a child. She was the neighborhood, go to Edith, she'll do it for you person. And so the caregiving came from her. This is my adopted mother, but she's my mom. And since that time, I now am very, very close to Marjorie Huffman, who just turned 104 at Dossier Manor. And I just love people. And I love helping people. And I can be sitting alone at night thinking of doing God's will. And it's like a joy that I've never experienced before. I can't even explain it. It's like, thank you, Lord.
Well, I know, Joan, we had talked about even the end of last year, having you do a concert with Marjorie at Dossier Manor.
She was wonderful.
And yes, but we still want to film that. So why don't you tell us a little more about Marjorie for a minute?
Marjorie she and her husband ran a funeral home in Holland, Michigan for over 40 years. She became a nurse. They moved to Tarpon Springs. She nursed for 36 or something years. She played organ and piano in the First Presbyterian Church. I can put a piece of music that she doesn't even know in front of her. She will look at the key signature and the time signature and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and start playing the piece. And I have to catch up with her. She's amazing. And
I've had the opportunity to hear her play.
She is amazing. She is. Every once in a while in the car, when I take her for her ride, she'll say, "I just don't understand why the Lord doesn't take me." I said, "Well, Marjorie, maybe it's because I need something to do." And she goes like that. But I can't wait to see her again. It's coming. I told her, I wrote her a note today. I write her about every other day, and I just said, "It's coming. We're going to get together soon. I feel it." So, but
what advice would you give a young person today?
Oh my. Well, God has to be first in their life. My grandson, once I had to give advice to him. He has been thinking of being a Navy SEAL. And I said to him, well, I don't know where he got the idea, but he got it. He's 19 years old, and I'm very proud of that. But I guess it's like with him. I said, let me just say this, Sam. If you decide not to be a Navy SEAL, please know that I'm the proudest grandmother that you could ever have for even thinking of doing something like that. And I think as grandparents, we have to realize the changes that have happened. Oh, look where we are now. I feel like I'm in a bubble with science fiction all around. And this, I think I've written to Craig Carter at least 3 times telling him, thank you for the protection, you know. Mm-hmm. But God has to come first in everything you do. He does. And if they don't have the Lord, please find a way to find him. Because there's nothing like just giving it all. Give it all to Jesus. It's the answer. It just is, because he'll take care of it. The thing that's happened to me since I've been here, I finally know what it means to have the peace that passes understanding. I have no fears anymore. People get upset, you know. Mm-hmm. Oh, this thing in the mass and the thing. I said, just give it to him. He's in charge. He'll take care of us. If we do what we're supposed to do, we have nothing to fear. So I have no fears, none.
That's a beautiful testimony, thank you.
Well, it's the truth.
Do you have things on a bucket list that you want to accomplish?
I do. When I win the Publishers Clearinghouse, and I have $5,000 a week, and I don't know what to do with $5,000, I'm going to rent a Winnebago, and I'm going to take 3 of my closest friends, and we're going to travel all over the United States. We're going to start up, and we're going to go way over, down California, and down through Texas, and back over home. The other thing is I'm going to go visit the family that I studied in Italy with for a year in Italy, and I want to go visit them. That's really about the only... Oh, no, my friend in Alaska. I've never been to Alaska, and her, every time we talk, oh, Joan, if you could see the Northern Lights, you would never forget it. So those are the 3 biggies. But somebody has to win. I've been filling out those crazy cards since 1973. And who knows?
Your number should be
And
up
the
soon.
village here will get the bulk of it, let me tell you. I have never been in a place like the Advent Christian Village. I feel so privileged to be here. Absolutely privileged to be here.
After you worked as the first activity director, did you ever work in a similar position after that?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, what I've done here, what I do want to mention is we have a group, the Grace Notes, the 5 women. In fact, we rehearsed last night, and we're going to be doing the church service on July 11th. And the songs we're singing were written by 2 of the girls.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, Dolores Moore and Gail Jones wrote the songs, and we're going to be performing those 2 songs. Yes. Music, yes. Music therapy, which I got into after I had my operatic career for a long time. I do that down on the dementia wing at least once a month. I tried twice a month, but then I got too busy, and I said, I have to only go once a month. But yes, yeah, so yeah, I do the music therapy and the children. I do a program for the children at the library once a month. They are a hoot.
Now, are you doing a musical program for them?
Yes, yeah. And I get them involved. Yeah. So.
For our viewers who don't know about music and dementia, would you share a little bit about that?
I will. Music will do it when nothing else can. I used to walk into the room and I'd sit them all around. This was up in North Carolina. instead of talking, I would do a melody. Good morning, my name is Joan, you have to do yours now. And they'd have to sing around the table. You can get the attention with especially hymns. They love the hymns. I had one lady who used to give me the number. I'd say, okay, we're going to do Amazing Grace, and she'd go 404. They can sing. The brain is a separate part with the music. They can sing the fourth verse of Old Rugged Cross when they can't remember how to tie their shoe or eat. It's amazing. It's amazing what music does. When we go down there, the rhythm, and they have good rhythm. We get them up, they move around, and that gives them exercise. And they don't even know they're exercising. Yeah, but I got into music therapy before it was music therapy, before there was any degree, and a wonderful man by the name of Richard Spalding sent me to New York, paid my way. I sat before a board of 5 people because I already had a master's degree in music, and he said, no sense in you going back to school. And I had been working with him and answered all their questions and got a whatever the thing is, certification in gerontology, blah, blah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I often think that people should, if they don't know music now, they should learn it so that they have it to.
Oh, and when you pick you pick the most familiar thing that they know.
Right.
And you start there. And it is. And it's nice because when we go down, I have 4 or 5 people that go down with me on the wing. It's nice because then the nurses can do their thing, and they know that they get about 25, 30 people out there, and we keep them for an hour, and it gives them a chance to get some paperwork done, So, but music is miraculous.
And I guess my first experience with that was my aunt was in a nursing home.
Wow.
And she didn't remember who I was or anybody else. And I came in one day and one of the nurses said, did your aunt play the piano and sing? I said, well, she didn't play as well as my grandmother, but she could play. And she said, she knows every song.
Yes.
And another day she said to me, I bet she was a teacher because the only programs we ever have that she interacts with other than music are when the children come.
I know. Music is miraculous.
Yes, it is.
It is.
And so are you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I hope y'all will tune in for another Front Porch Conversation.